Okay, so we're going to be taking apart this computer for IT Essentials. I'm going to start by taking the case cover off, just putting that off to the side. Now we're going to take the cover off of the heatsink fan. Which is used for stability. Unplug that right here. We'll put that to the side because that's connected under the power supply, which we'll get to. Now we're going to remove the heatsink. The heatsink's used to cool the CPU, which is basically the brains of the entire computer, and it's under the heatsink. Unplug the power to that. Right there. So this is the heatsink. It's got a little bit of thermal paste on it, but I can't take that off right now because I don't have extra. You would use the alcohol wipes to wipe it off and clean it and dry it off. And then you'd put it on the CPU, which is right there. We're gonna put this off to the side. Next thing we're gonna do is unplug and remove the optical drive, which is right here. So unplug the SATA. Do this. Push out, and then here we go. You can read and write data on the optical drive. So the next thing we're going to do is remove the SSD, which is the solid state drive, and its main use is storing data from the computer. Go like this, take it out just like that. Okay, next, we're going to unplug the P1 and P2 cables, which are right there. Those take the power from the power supply and send those to the computer. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to unplug the LEDs, which basically indicate whether things are running correctly on the computer or not via like lights for like the optical drive, like if it's on and it's working. Same thing with the power. Okay, we're going to remove the motherboard now. This takes a little while because there's a bunch of screws to hold it down. Okay, I think we're good. The motherboard's like a giant circuit board that allows other circuit boards to connect to it and cables to basically have every component in the computer running smoothly. So This motherboard is absolutely humongous. It would help if we unplug the HDMI and keyboard and mouse. Or not HDMI. Here it is. CPU is there. So now what we're gonna do is remove the RAM, which is right here, which is random access memory. And this is basically what allows you to have certain, like as many tabs open as you have on your computer, or have different programs running at the same time. It's the memory that allows, it's a certain amount of memory, like I'm not sure how much is on this stick, 4 gigs, so we have 8 gigabytes altogether of memory you can use while the computer's on. Okay, so now we're going to remove the power supply. Which basically takes the power from like a wall, or like a wall outlet, or any external source, and converts it to power to be used by the motherboard and all the components connected to it. So I don't think, yeah, so here it is. I can't take it all the way out because it's like bolted into the case. Here, I'll show you. This is the case after I took it apart. So to reassemble, we're going to start by screwing in the power supply, the first part, because this specific computer is very difficult to put back together because everything is so close together. There's not a lot of breathing room, so we should do this first, get it out of the way, because we're not going to have to mess with it after we screw it back in. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is insert the motherboard. You have to be careful about there. Like I said, everything is very close together, so we have to be careful. There we go, it's inserted. Now you have to screw it in. There's one. Two. Three. 4. 7. There we go. So now the motherboard is in. The next thing we're going to do is insert the RAM. But you have to make sure that the little notch there is on the right side, because otherwise you can really damage it and it won't work. Also, don't touch the pins on the end. Okay, plug that in. Once you hear the clicks, then you know it's in correctly. Like that. Perfect. So now we're gonna plug in the LEDs like that. And then the P1 and 2. There. Next thing is the SSD, which goes just like that. Plug that in there. And then this in here. Okay, so now we insert the optical drive, which we have to put this down for. There we go. And we have to plug that in as well. That goes there. And this goes there. Okay, so now we're going to plug in the cables for those into the motherboard. Perfect. Okay, so we're just going to plug in the rest of these cables, like power for the power supply. Here we go. Make sure they all look good. There. Okay, so now we're going to center and screw in the heatsink fan again on top of the CPU. The trick with this is to not screw one side all the way. You want to do a little bit on each side so it doesn't wrench a screw or possibly break the motherboard. Because if you do one side at a time, it could possibly damage something. So just go around in a circle. Okay, so now we're going to plug in the fan to the motherboard so it can receive power. There we go. Now we're going to put the cover back on. Plug that in. There we go. And now, this is the finished computer. Everything plugged in. So now I think we're going to turn it on, see if it works. You have to put this cover back on just in case. There. So now you want to plug this in last, actually. Plug in the VGA so the monitor can actually show something. And then plug in USBs for the mouse and keyboard so those two will work. Okay. So we're gonna plug it in. We're gonna power it up now. See, it's turning on. See if Windows boots. You can see the VGA is active. That's a result of me plugging it over there. I'll put this down so I can press Control-Alt-Delete. And there we go. It's working. Obviously this computer isn't set up, but it does have Windows 7 on it. It's working over here. It's working over here, keyboard and mouse.